have these great IPs and this enormous marketing budget. What they're not going to have is teams of people who so passionately care about the product that they can and do talk to the community on a daily basis without needing to go through a marketing department. They know what you want. It's your product in a way that it can never be in a great big publisher. So actually I think that's the positive side of being an indie developer. That opportunity is going to be one that's going to be very hard for big games publishers to replicate and compete with.
And that's the most refreshing thing for me, I think I've found in the last year or two, having come from publishing, is that I never spoke to the community. We'd find out a year, after a product launched what was wrong with it, and then 2 years later you do the next iteration. And now we go to the forums, we talk to the community, we have Twitter follows, all that kind of stuff, and you can actively talk to people and get feedback straight away and find out what they like and what they don't like. And it's such a refreshing way of working compared to how we worked before.
And to take that question further, how do you see team sizes changing through the life cycle from kind of running up to launch, through launch, and then up to a year later where we are now on your project, Ian? I mean, do they stay consistent? Do they peak at launch?
Clearly the team sizes come right down, and perhaps even we're releasing DLC that was made some time ago. This is definitely a marketing agenda now.
Not a development agenda.
Not a development agenda in the same way. There still is some development that goes on. I think one of the interesting things, though, that the consoles are going to struggle with is that ability which you have in the open platforms to actually continue to play with the product, to just iterate it, tweak it, re-release it. That's much harder on a console. And that's a very important part of being able to continue to work with the community. And that's taken away from you. Not entirely, you can do product updates, but it's a much more difficult cycle than it would be just on Steam or on iPhone.
Okay. Either I was really enjoying that, or we've just suddenly lost 10 minutes from the session. So do we have any more questions from the audience? Suddenly now, when the 10 minutes have gone, I've got lots. Kevin and that chap back there. Maybe we'll take both of them, and then we'll answer them as you guys see fit.
Kevin Hassel from Baraya. Just to follow on what was mentioned before about team sizes, if you're transitioning from a work-for-hire basis through to having your own product, which you then take control of and market, what impact does that have on the structure of the team, the structure of the development, the kind of skills that you need to have involved?
Okay, so that structure of team and what impact you need. And the chap at the back, we can have your question as well to make sure we can answer.
Hi, Robin Crouch, Screen Yorkshire. Just going back to platforms that you originally spoke about at the top of the session, just interested, only really been spoken around iPhone as a platform. I just wonder what the panel and what sort of developments you possibly are doing on other platforms and what the thoughts are around there with business models, opportunities with those as well.
So other platforms, meaning other mobile platforms?
Other mobile platforms,
Other mobile platforms. Okay, so how are teams changing, and how do you see other mobile platforms? As you guys wish. Somebody answer one of the questions.
So very quickly on teams changing, I think if you take the view that you're a publisher, then the team has to be there as you need for the product. And that might mean you need all of it and it's a big team, or it might mean you can outsource everything because all you care about is the core of the IP. And that's a product-based thing. And that's an important, massive change, that you only care about the product and not about these team of people you employ as much, because that's the way you have to think as a publisher. On the platforms, I've got my new Android phone Google gave me the other week at GDC. It's brilliant. I want Google Android games, please. No, I think those other platforms will be very important. I can't see Apple's dominance of the app space being retained.
Okay.
We've outsourced a lot of the extra publishing functions. There's something we're still learning about, and to be honest, we haven't got all the magic answers at all. But PR and obviously localization and QA and all that kind of stuff. We just have very good relationships with some great outsourcers that can help us do that kind of stuff. I think we're going to need an internal marketing person we don't have at the moment, and that's definitely probably a weakness we've got. But I think other than that, the actual games themselves are not a million miles away from work for hire. It's just getting the right specialists in to do that. And as the guy said, I think it's not necessarily having a really big team, getting the game finished and going, phew, that's done. We've hit master, it's all over. It's about doing very small things, sticking them out there, trying, seeing what works, and then iterating them, and then possibly spending an even more money and an even bigger team on them later, if it's working well.
To follow on with that, we've been speaking with a company in the States called Sleepy Giant, who describe themselves as a publisher for hire, and I think increasingly we're going to see that. So the developers are actually sort of holding the IP and being the ones that are attracting the finance, and then actually going in and paying external publishers to enable them to really focus on the product and have outsource all the publishing functions. Yeah.
Paul, we have to ask you about other platforms as the mobile guy.
But Gosh, yeah, I keep getting asked this question. I probably disagree with Ian slightly in that I find it hard to see how the others are going to catch up with Apple in the short term, certainly. Android's interesting, yeah, it's an interesting platform, it's capable, but you've got all the fragmentation that caused problems with Java and with Brew. So I think that's going to take a long time, and I think Google have got a huge job to really engage the kind of grassroots development community and get support there. So, but it's Google, so you've got to kind of watch that one. Microsoft with the Windows platform, yeah, I think that's a wait and see as well. Sounds exciting. I think Microsoft probably, similar to Apple, have the capability of putting everything in the ecosystem in place on day one. So, great device, great operating platform, good distribution platform, and a business model that obviously gets the development community excited and can obviously reward the community for success. So that's certainly worth watching as well. We're having good success on DSiWare right now. We're launching on PSP Minis as well. So I think Nintendo and Sony are kind of interesting as well. Obviously, rumours are that Sony are going to move into the mobile phone space with a PSP phone at some point. So I think we can watch all of those platforms with interest as well.
Okay, well, I think I'm really sorry having got you to prepare questions. I'm really sure I just lost 10 minutes abruptly there. So I have one very last question for the panel before we wrap up, which is, if you were starting a new development business today, somebody gave you £2 million and said, go and no baggage, no background, no team, no anything. What business models or models would you pick to kick off a brand new business where you don't have to worry about the initial dev cost today?
For us, absolutely, no doubt, freemium, free-to-play with subscription and microtransactions for DLC, no doubt.
Still on iPhone, would you stick with that?
iPhone and Facebook.
iPhone and Facebook.
I think for me, it's a mix between that and trying lots of different small game ideas on that and seeing which ones work and which ones don't. And also the stuff that Margaret was talking about earlier with the brands and the various. I think there are so many people desperately eager to come into games at the moment, and they're huge creative challenges and they're really exciting things to work on. So I think there's lots and lots and lots of potential in that area for people to specialise. So I think they're the two areas that excite me the most.
Okay, so same as Paul, but also kind of new sources of ideas, as it were.
I think there are big VC houses spending stupid amounts of money buying Facebook developers, so I'd take the £2 million, dress one up and sell it again straight away.
Very sensible.
Excellent.
Very sensible. Can you top that one, or are you just going to just nod?
Difficult to top that one, but no, I think I'd go for sort of paid for, freemium, subscription-based virtual item sales. I'd go for everything which can work within a game. I mean, increasingly you see games that add new monetization sort of strategies as they go along. And as for platform, I think I'm sold on the on Windows 7 mobile. Sounds fantastic. Yeah. Cheers, Ben.
Excellent. So, in summary from that lot, I've heard that there are a bunch of very different ways of making money. We've got 4 very different businesses with very different platforms, genres and demographics making money in different ways. I see more enthusiasm actually about being an independent developer than perhaps I would have seen in a similar panel 3 or 4 years ago. So I personally, taking this from the panel, I also believe it generally, I'm extremely excited about the opportunity of being an independent developer over the next 2 or 3 years. I do caution, I think it's only 2 or 3 years. I think the publishers are really going to come back in strong way in about 3 years' time. If you want to get into this space, I'd do it now. In fact, it's probably already a bit late, so I'd really do it now. That's my last bit of advice to the panel. So can we say thank you to the panel, and then I'm sure Charles will come to tell us about lunch.